The Jilting of Granny Weatherall is a short story by American author Katherine Anne Porter, first published in 1930 as part of her collection Flowering Judas and Other Stories. The narrative unfolds during the final moments of Granny Weatherall's life, delving into her emotions, memories, and the struggle to confront her mortality. Written amid the modernist movement, which aimed to innovate literary forms and explore new narrative techniques and perspectives, the story employs a stream of consciousness style to capture the fragmented and subjective nature of human experience. The story opens with Granny Weatherall lying in bed, surrounded by her family and Dr. Harry. She engages in a light argument with the doctor, insisting he should direct his attention to those in greater need rather than to a well woman, while dismissing his condescending attempts to comfort her with references to his youth. As she speaks, Dr. Harry seems to float at the foot of the bed. Gradually, she drifts in and out of consciousness, awakening to the sounds of the doctor and her daughter, Cornelia, discussing her condition. Granny feels irritated by Cornelia's concern and asks her to stop whispering and leave the room. As Granny drifts back to sleep, her thoughts turn to unfinished tasks, and she feels a sense of relief, knowing that she has organized the household to ease tomorrow's chores. She recalls a box of letters from George and John, but dismisses the idea of dealing with them, thinking it will be a task for her children afterwards. Though thoughts of death briefly intrude on her mind, they trouble her only vaguely. She feels somewhat prepared, having made a will and said her goodbyes to family members when she was 60. Granny reflects on her life, recognizing that despite her age, her adult children, Lydia, Jimmy, and Cornelia, still seek her advice. Having been widowed at a young age, she has faced hardships, juggling domestic duties, tending her land, caring for her children, and working as a midwife. Nevertheless, she rose to each challenge and wishes she could relive those moments. Granny acknowledges that her children are now older than her husband John was at the time of his death, and she looks forward to reuniting with him soon. A mist envelops her thoughts, reminiscent of a fog that once frightened her children. She fondly recalls how she comforted the children by lighting the lamps, grateful to God for the strength He has given her over the years. Yet the boundaries between her past and present blur, and her thoughts are interrupted by the unwelcome memory of her first fiancé, George, jilting her on their wedding day, leaving their wedding cake uncut and discarded. For the past 60 years, she has tried to push this painful memory from her mind. Granny is jolted back to the present when Cornelia wipes her face with a cold cloth. It is now evening, and the doctor returns to administer an injection. She longs for her daughter Hapsy, who died several years ago, presumably during childbirth, and imagines searching for her in a house with many rooms. When she finally finds Hapsy, she is cradling a baby in her arms. Sensing that her mother is nearing death, Cornelia asks if there's anything she can do for her. Granny wishes for George to know that he did not ruin her life, that she went on to marry happily and have children. However, she also feels that something else is missing. A priest, Father Donnelly, arrives, but Granny feels at peace with her soul and believes she will go to heaven. As she drifts off, she envisions a storm approaching. In her mind, she recalls the time Hapsy went into labor, and she thinks she sees her beloved daughter by her bedside. Yet Hapsy is not there. Instead, her other children, Lydia and Jimmy, arrive. When Granny drops the rosary she holds, Jimmy attempts to hand it back, but she takes his hand instead. She tells Cornelia that she is not going to die because she is not ready. Again, she searches for Hapsy in her thoughts and fears they will not be reunited after all. The blue light at her bedside transfers to her mind, flickering as she waits for God's sign, but she receives nothing. It dawns on her that God has jilted her, just as George did all those years ago. This betrayal feels far worse. With her last breath, she extinguishes the blue light in her mind. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.